Democrats and not Republicans. It was when Ronald Reagan was president and significant funding was being directed into the Star Wars defense program. Y'all remember that? She said, because it's okay to want to protect people, but if we don't care for people, who will be left to protect? This is how I grew up. Listening to my grandmother's wisdom and at my mother's side, at campaign headquarters for Jimmy Carter, Louis Stokes, Geraldine Ferraro, Dick Celeste, Howard Metzenbaum, Bill Clinton, Stephanie Tubbs Jones, Sherrod Brown, and ultimately for Barbara Boyd. I grew up knowing which products and companies to avoid until they divested from South Africa and protest to apartheid. My birthday present for my 18th birthday was not a car or a spa day. It was a beautifully wrapped voter registration card. I grew up standing at polling locations all over the county in morning and evening shifts, at rallies for equal pay for women, listening to firsthand accounts of the Holocaust and of sit-ins during the Civil Rights Movement. I grew up understanding that to be a citizen with access to education and the privilege to vote, that I have a moral responsibility to stand, to act, to advocate. William Arthur Ward said, "Do more than belong, participate. Do more than care, help. Do more than believe, practice. Do more than be fair, be kind. Do more than forgive, forget. Do more than dream, work." My mom taught me these things by living them. And with even less physical mobility than she's ever had, she continues to live these things today. And what could be more progressive than that? From spearheading the Heights Housing Fund in response to our wonderful city's history of redlining, to co-creating the Heights Parent Center, from co-writing the original TANF policy to writing the legislation for kinship care and getting it passed and getting it funded year after year after year. For voting for Medicaid expansion and voting against House Bill 5. She is your former councilwoman, your first African-American woman to be elected mayor of the city of Cleveland Heights, and she is your state representative. Please join me in welcoming State Representative Barbara Boyd.
They asked me, did I really need a microphone? I don't need a microphone on the floor of the Ohio House. And there are 99 members there, and plus the staff and the pages. I have been blessed by having good administrative assistants. This year I have a young man from New Jersey by the name of Dominic Pirelli. I've had Scott Bray was my first one. He was from Springfield. He would drive in every day from Springfield to Columbus to be my aide and be there. When I got there, he was always waiting by the elevator with the folders under his arm, and he said, "Come on, let's walk and talk." And that's how I learned how to choose someone to be administrative aide. See, everyone thinks all that takes place in Columbus comes just from us as legislators. It comes from our aides who do the hard work. Ask any judge. They will tell you if you don't have a good bailiff, then you're in trouble. It can mess your entire schedule up. As I look around the room, I think about the people who would have been in these seats some years ago, and I know there's one person for sure. That would be my friend and rock. That would be Phyllis Evans. Phyllis was always there with me, and the one person that you very seldom see is Cheryl Horowitz. She's been my treasurer since 1984. She keeps my books. She tells me, now this is what you have. Now who are you going to give this to? And I would especially tell Dominic, I said, Dominic, call on your personal cell and tell Cheryl, to give this to this one, this to this one, this one, this one. I will tell you that it is going to change in Columbus. And it's our fault because we haven't worked hard enough to keep the Republican Party out of those state offices. Now I'm telling you that. I have, my success in the House is because I have a good working relationship with them, especially when when Bill Clinton put the welfare reform bill on in place, and for every state to develop your own welfare reform, your own TANF, temporary assistance to needy families. It was so difficult for me to think about what are we going to do and who they're going to put me with. Well, they put me with Mike Wise, Joan Lawrence, who I knew Joan from when Joan was a president of the League of Women Voters, and I had to go down to Columbus for a convention. And also was Gary Cates out of Middletown. And the other person, I'm trying to think of who was it? Oh, the chairman of the Caveman Caucus, Bob Netsley. Bob Netsley has been, try this. There's your state rep right there, Armin Budish. But when it comes down to Bob Netsley, we developed a relationship. We went to all 88 counties in this state by car. And he would arrange places. He said, I want you to go to Troy, Ohio. And I said, where is Troy, Ohio? And then they told me where it is. And he placed me in a lovely bread and breakfast. And he says, I'll pick you up in the morning after he introduced me to the hostess. And then we'll go and have some breakfast. And I said, where are we going to go? He said, there's a diner. If you know anything about Troy, there ain't nothing there. There's nothing there. But Bob Netsley and I made a bond. And in fact, in all of the issues, in fact, there was one time people said, we got to see this. We have to see a Boyd Netsley amendment. Because somebody, as Ray Miller told me, said, he said, you brought Netsley more to the middle than he took you to the right. But the fact of the matter is Bob Netsley and I became such friends that when he passed, it was in 2010, they had a memorial celebration for him. And his daughter is a psychiatrist at Cleveland Clinic. And she knew I just had spine surgery. And she came, I couldn't believe how people would come and whisper things in my ear. And she whispered, and she said, Dad understands, he really understands. And I said, Kathy, is this you? And because I had to hold my head still, because it was at the back, it was at the neck. And she said, he loved you so much. And in fact, I found out just how much he loved me. Because everyone said all of his old friends from the Caveman Caucus, they could never talk to him once he had left the house. But his wife would always say, Bob, in a very weak voice, Barbara's on the phone, and he would get up and stop whatever he was doing, and he would definitely come to the phone. And he said, I get your newsletter. I said, well, I got your check. Because Bob Nessie was cheap. He loved pistachio ice. When we would go out for dinner, I said, Bob, let's go to Claremont so I can have a steak or a prime rib or lamb chop. And he would say, well, let's go down the street on Broad. I said, not to that Italian restaurant. He said, yes, because he really loved spaghetti. I mean, no matter where you went, he wanted spaghetti. But Mr. Netsley became my friend. That's why I tell people who go downstate, I said, you don't have to be afraid, because Bob Netsley was always a friend of mine. Then Jim Beakey. Jim Beakey gave me a special pass to get an underground garage, so if I had to walk or use a wheelchair, I would not have to walk or use a wheelchair. And it is on my car right now. When they see that, they say, that's Representative Boyd's car. Let her in. It has been a journey like no other. I had the opportunity through the two times, twice, that I have been in Cleveland Clinic. And here comes Toby Cosgrove. And Toby Cosgrove would come in the room. I said, and what do we owe this privilege? And he would just smile. He said, how are you doing? I said, fine. He told me things, and we talked about health care. When I first started, my mother died in 1998 of Alzheimer's. Liz Malone, who's back there, she remembers when Janine was a baby, wasn't even crawling. And I think about the first time I went to a candidates forum, I met Liz and Bob Jones. And we have been friends since then. Mary Manigault, one night we spent barbecuing ribs, I don't know how many cases, in a warehouse over in Bedford Heights. And I'm saying, I'm going to smell like ribs tomorrow. And I said, oh, please, but we did it, and we did it for the right reason. We did it to help people. I never got on anything that I couldn't do something to help people. Even the judges. I had to hold you hostage in 2000. And I held you hostage because Jim Hoops out of Wauseon, Ohio, up near Williams County. He had, they had judges that had asked for a raise. And I said, absolutely not. I'm on finance. I'm not the chair of finance committee. But I said, absolutely not. And so everybody looked at me and they said, why not? I said, because the state reps who are here and serve all the time, not just every day, but all the time, they haven't had a raise since I got here in 1993. I said, it is time for them to get a raise. I said, you come with a raise for the state reps, you come with the raise for the state senators, you come with the raise for the people who serve us in our offices, then you give the judges a raise. And I knew when I said it, I said, oh hell, here we go. Every evening I would go to the Claremont. And the Claremont was a steak and chops house on South High Street. And I liked it because they would always have a wastebasket next to my table. And I would go through my papers and I said, okay, okay, not gonna do bottom of this. And then, and they would just come and take the wastebasket away, but never threw away anything confidential. And as I was leaving, I looked up and there was Speaker Davidson, Joanne Davidson, there was Mr. Hoops, there was Randy Gardner, I call him Rando, and there's Chip Bromley. And the thing that made it so very, very interesting as I was leaving, I said, I can't get out of here without passing that table. So Bob what's his last name? Corbin. He was at the table. So there was Speaker Davidson and those other three guys. Randall and I became kind of good friends too, because he and I could work together on an issue of diabetes. We went to, as I was passing by, I said, Speaker Davidson, Mr. Corbin, I said, Randall, and I looked, I said, hi Jim, how you doing? And Speaker Davidson, in her very soft voice, would say, Ms. Boyd. And I said, yes, Speaker. She said, I hear you have a problem with the ratings. And I said, no, the judges work hard, they deserve it. I said, but your legislators work hard and they deserve it too. Because when you went down, there was $42,000 a year, and you had to pay for your meals and pay for your room. I ended up living for how many years at the German Village Inn that everyone knows me. Now, you know who's been to Columbus and knows what the German Village Inn is? It's a whorehouse. It is a whorehouse. The police would come through and they would say, can you go find some place else to go? I said, not for no $40-some a night. And I mean 2 beds and everything. I said, no, can't find a place else, not for me. Now my daughter was sitting over there. She would sometimes go down with me. And she said, are we going to stay at that place? I said, yes. I have my Rubbermaid bath mat. And I said, I have my extra towels already. And they know I have to have 2 more pillows. And she would say, Mother, she said, let's stay at the Renaissance. Let's stay at the, I said, we're not doing that. I said, because this is my room. And you know, she would actually get up in the middle of the night, and I'm a light sleeper. And she would go to the window, and she would pull aside the little short draperies, and she said, Mother, there's some inappropriate behavior taking place here. And she said, don't you think you should call the mayor? I said, no, I really don't think so. She said, what about the police? I said, they'll find their way here if something happens. Well, that is still the place that I would stay even now today, because it was a place that made me comfortable and it fit my budget. And that made a difference. And I told her every time I said, she's going to get up in the middle of the night. Bob, she's going to get in the middle of the night. She's going to go and peek behind the curtains and make sure there's some inappropriate behavior. And I talked to a couple of the judges in Franklin County, and I would tell Victor from Squire Saunders, and not Squires, but from Dennis Friedlander. Victor Goodman. And Victor Goodman, he says, is your daughter looking for inappropriate behavior? I said, she doesn't have to look far, it's there. And then one night she had the nerve to wake me, Mother, I saw a man and there were 2 young ladies with him, and he looked a little too old to be with them. I said, well then just leave them alone. They're not bothering you. They did not knock on your door. So just sit yourself down, and I said, go to bed, let me go to bed. Well, that's the kind of life sometimes you have to live as a state rep. You have to choose a place that you can afford to stay in. Right now, I miss Speaker Davidson. I miss Armin Budish, because he was the leader of the House. And he put me on the chair of the Health Committee, which he knew I was concerned about health. Alzheimer's was certainly something, because of my mother, that I became the first legislator to get the award for the Alzheimer's group. I told him, I said, you're not doing this right. And the gentleman said, what do you mean we're not doing it right? You're not doing it right. You gotta get them some cheese and some grapes. And I said, and you have to get some wine and catch them before they leave, after they leave the State House, and then find themselves to their office. So you got to lobby like that for your money. I was able to do that, and that's a good thing. Because as my mother died of Alzheimer's, I was in her room. I never put her in a nursing home. took care of her. I mean, I was running back and forth, and that's a good thing, because now Alzheimer's is not a question. People know what it is, and what it is to watch someone who has Alzheimer's, how they lose their place that they once had. I believe I don't know what they're gonna do, because we're not in charge, but I know Armin said, why don't you go and talk to the speaker if you want to leave? I said, I'm not staying down here all night, because Bob doesn't want to stay down here at night. And so about 2 weeks ago, you can talk to him. I said, wait a minute, I'm not in leadership. I said, I'm just a state legislator. Well, you can talk to him. And do you know I didn't get him to cut everybody else off? So we got out of there, didn't we? And I was home by 6 o'clock. Don't expect the same thing from a Joanne Davidson Republican. Don't expect anything at all from the Republican Party. I got one thing I'm talking to John Husted tomorrow about, but that is going to be something that has to be taken care of. And don't expect anything to change unless you change the people who are in those elective offices. If you can't get out there and work to get these people out of office, you will continue to have the kind of house that you have now. 99 members. We have, how many, 39 or 40? 39, that means there's 60 Republicans to 39 Democrats. The other day we dealt with a bill, substitute House Bill 5. And I went down there just for that. And I said, I'm not voting for this. So, of course, Ron Armstead came and talked to me. And he said, I said, Ron, you're trying to be an orator now. I said, I'm not voting for this. I said, it's wrong. You're not going to take 800. And they knew they had me when they said, I don't know if it was Matt Lundy or who said it. Well, Cleveland Heights is going to lose over $800,000 a year. I said, oh, hell no. And I'm sitting in a wheelchair at the back of the room, and I said, oh no, it's not going to be like that. We voted against the bill, but they had the numbers. Always remember, it is a numbers game. It is numbers that make you who you are and determine what you can do. I know for me, for the health committee, there's some things that we have to deal with. And remember now, you got Lynn Watchman.
Oof.
Who said that? Lynn Watchman is chair of the health committee. But he and I worked well together. I had to get between him and Bob Hagan. I mean, I literally had to get between them because Lynn jumped up, Hagan jumped up, and here I am, the chair. I said, oh, no. I said, go ahead, sit down. Sit down. It's a matter of record. And people will tell you something. The one thing for sure is that who the chair of the committee is determines what you can do as a legislator. Remember now, we did try to kill a couple of things, but the Republican Party, and I told to speak on the floor, I still asked for a point of personal privilege. I said, get your house in order. And I'm saying to myself, should I have said that? Well, I did. Get your house in order. Because that Tea Party is in there, and you have the moderate Republicans in there, and one holds a hammer over the head of the other. And that Tea Party is gaining in strength. I talked to Brent Larkin some years ago, and I said, Brent, I don't understand. He said, well, why don't they vote their interest? I said, it's about guns. And I said, it's about abortion. I said, and if you're on one side or the other, and any of those issues, you will be very, very clear that you are not going to get Watchmen and that caucus to go against each other. They'll tell them, we'll run somebody against you. And they did this year. They did run Republicans against Republicans. And that's something that I hope will never happen. with the Democratic Party. But I will tell you something else that I've observed. They hip hop. They hip hop from one house to the other. They do that in a minute. Randy Gardner has been in the Senate twice, I think. He's been in the House many more years than I care to remember, but he was a good friend of mine in Wood County. You cannot do anything without some people to work with. And someone said, what's leadership? I said, no, it's numbers. I said, as long as you have a strong inner caucus, and that inner caucus is going to be overruled by anyone else who's going to come and try to change it. That's what happened in Washington. That Tea Party is just clogging the health care bill, the Obamacare as he calls it. But the man made a promise. He told all of us, he said, everybody deserves health care. I have been in the hospital enough to watch, and I have a bad sleep habit. I don't like to sleep real late at night. And I could see hospitals moving elderly people at night out of their rooms and sending them home and hoping that somebody is there to receive them from a family member, or they've gone to a skilled nursing care community. Ladies and gentlemen, your Democratic Club, and I appreciate this opportunity to tell you, you got to get people, not just yourself, you really have to get people to vote not for what's going to be on the ballot next year, as far as the Republican Party is concerned. You got to hold your ground, because they hold theirs, and they don't take it lightly to lose. My aide told me, he said, you're not going to have to come in next week. I said, I know I'm not coming next week. I said, I have to get ready for my Thanksgiving dinner. And he said to me today, he said, I think you may have to come. I said, what's on the books? Whose bill is it and what it's going to be used for? They did try to put a bill on the ballot no, not on the ballot. They tried to change the whole issue of when you were going to vote. Because you know it was Dick Finan who made us have, in a presidential year, and President Finan, who proposed and got it passed, that we would have in the year the president ran, that you would have an early primary. Why? Because of how many people here remember Super Tuesday? Super Tuesday that was how you chose your president, because that was from the primary. Now it's different. We're going to have next year, primary is going to be in May. And I'm telling you without question, there's not going to be, I know that it's going to be the governor's race, Secretary of State, all of those state offices are going to be up. We have some candidates, I think James Carney Jr. is going to run. He's running against Yost, who didn't believe he had won. When he ran, he didn't believe he had won. And he was quite surprised, as I was surprised that he won. But now we're going to have a chance to recoup some of those seats. Don't just talk to yourself. Talk to your neighbors. Help them with their literature. I know I'm old school. I don't even have a computer. My daughter always tells, Mother, you don't even have a smartphone. I said, I don't have a cell phone. I said, you know how to reach me? How many people know how to reach me? Hold them high. You call my house. You call my house, that's what you do. And I pick up the phone. My aide calls me every morning at 7:30 a.m. And I have a friend back there, my hairdresser, Daisy Rickman, who's lived in Cleveland Heights more than 30 years, that I can talk to Daisy at 2 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock. I said, who are you talking to? And I said, I'm talking to Daisy. Last night she was getting ready for her church fish fry. And I will tell you that she told me, I said, what are you doing? She said, making coleslaw. Now I am telling you, 2:47 in the morning. Now I don't think too many of you will do that at 7 o'clock in the morning. But Daisy Rickman, and the other one thing I'm gonna tell you for those who are aspiring, don't forget the people who brought you. Remember what Vern Wright said, the people that you always dance with the people who brought you. And that's a true statement, and I've lived my life. My aide said, you got 3,000 signatures on your database. I said, well, put them in alphabetical order, put the address and phone number. He said, but there are 3,000 signatures. I said, it'll be okay, don't worry about it. And I am going to have a Christmas party. I'm the only one who has a Christmas party. And we always have a charity, so I need a charity. We always bring gifts, you know, for children and for young adults, clothing. It's always in the crease, it's always there. There's always conch fritters, there's always Bahama Mamas. There's always turkey. There's always turducken. There's always my cookies. I'll make the cookies, but I'm not baking any cookies. And then I'm going to have the usual, but it will always be for fun. And it's really not for politics. I think the only politician that I ever interrupted my meeting was for when it was Governor Strickland came to the House. And how can you ignore the governor? Well, I didn't ignore him, and he had a chance to eat his pecan pie. And that's what he came there for. And his driver wanted ribs, and he came there for that too. In fact, at that time, they said, well, what should we do? I said, call the Highway Patrol. They'll tell you what's the procedure. He is no longer our governor. We lost a good man. We lost someone who listened to the people. I'd walk into his office, but I always have my little book with me, and I would make sure that he knew what I was there for. I said, I'm not here for chit-chat. I said, we have to do something about food stamps. Because I would do some things, and I would find out that some people only got $25 worth of food stamps. What can that do for you? Nothing. Does nothing. So next year, I expect to see all of you out there for us Democrats who want to see a change. Because if you don't, nobody else will. I thank you so much. And I know I talked a long time, but that's okay. You learned some history.
We've got a few minutes, and so we're going to take some questions. Ryan has the microphone in the back, and Arlen already has his hand up, so why don't you pass the microphone there, and I'm going to give this back to Art.
Come up here.
I just saw you yesterday.
No, you didn't. I apologize. I'm losing my voice. Bob understands too many phone calls. But I couldn't miss tonight. I wanted to just say a couple things about my longtime and wonderful friend, Barbara.
Over 30 years.
When I was considering a run for Speaker of the Ohio House, the first person I went to see was Barbara. Remember we had that breakfast?
Yes, we did.
Corky and Lenny's.
Yes, we
She came
did.
to my part of town.
Yes, we did.
And Barbara gave me her always sage advice. After she questioned my sanity, she was all supportive and helped me every way she could. I will tell you that Barbara is unique in Columbus. She is one of the most vigorous advocates for Democrats and democratic principles. But unlike what we see in Columbus today, she also has good relationships with the other side of the aisle. She knows how to do both. She doesn't give in. She doesn't simply go over there, sell her vote, but she knows how to work with the people. all kinds of people. When I was the Speaker of the House, Barbara will, I think, agree, our own Democratic side had a number of crazy people. Apart from the Republicans. But I will tell you that keeping control, keeping that group acting as a body together with a common goal, we needed somebody with experience and a steady hand, and that was always Barbara. Whenever I needed anything, whenever I needed somebody to talk to one of our members, explain the way things work, Barbara would help me with that. And I could not have served the way I did without Barbara's help. One other thing I want to mention, two things I want to mention. One is Barbara's talked about the people she's worked with and that have helped her. One person that I want to specifically mention is Robert Boyd. Bob is fabulous.
There he is.
Barbara wasn't telling the complete truth when she said when you call her home, she picks up. She doesn't pick up. He picks up.
He will pick up now.
The only time, and I'll finish with this, the only time that I really got angry with Barbara, I mean really angry, Barbara knows that my favorite food in the world is her pecan pie.
Yes.
Favorite. It's absolutely unmatched. So we're down in Columbus, had a vigorous session. I'm up there leading the group, and then Barbara comes up to me afterwards and said, I brought a couple pecan pies. And I said, where are they? She said, they're gone. She said, they got all eaten up. She didn't save me a piece. It's true. That was the one time. Other than that, Barbara's fabulous. We're going to miss you. The whole state will miss you in a year from now.
And I will tell you, I am not running again for nothing. I'm not taking any consulting jobs. I've already been asked, so don't even worry about that.
We'll figure something out.
Anybody have a question?
Yes, Carol.
I'm confident that we as Cleveland Heights people will get out and work for I know that we will get out in Cleveland Heights and work for our local candidates next year. But could you perhaps help us think about how we might expand our horizons in terms of health? Cleveland Heights is Democrats. We're going to elect Democrats, but Cleveland is not the place that we need to be concerned about. So what could we do to help some of our candidates in other parts of the state?
Well, you have to think of, and let's be realistic. When you go to Paulding County, only people I know in Paulding County are the Sappos. Oscar Sappho, Dr. Oscar Sappho. He told me his family's still there. I don't understand, and I'm going to talk to whoever's going to run the campaigns, that if there's Xenia, Ohio, Central State is there, Wright State is there, Wilberforce is just hanging on. I don't understand why they cannot get a minority to run for one of those seats. We have a rather strong black caucus. I don't go to their meetings because they want to talk too long and too much. I support them with dollars, so because I know that's what they're looking for. I talk to Sandra Williams all the time, more than once a week, because I see her when I leave the chambers. And she's running for state senate for this district. But one of the things I will say, get people who understand this is no pretty party. It's not a pretty party. It's hard to be a state rep. My doors are always open. Everyone knows what door to go to. You don't have to ring the doorbell, just let me know you're in the house. Or you, and Charlie Bibb, you know that.
All the time.
And I do it because I want to be open to people. For those of you who wondered what happened at the year that I was really out of it, I was on speakerphone. I talked to the chair of the Finance Committee, Ron Armstead, and he would announce, and this is a matter of public record, Representative Boyd is listening to all of the hearing, and I mean, I would sit there and through all of those hearings and listen to every last one. I have a copy of every statement that was made there. I have it at home. I have a relationship with Dr. David Burke. He's a pharmacist out of Marysville. He's a senator now, but he was then in the House. And I have a relationship with some other folks who, you know, I can talk to. I say, listen, let's be real about this. And the thing about it, they don't understand us. We don't understand them. I know I cannot go into Nelsonville or in some of those small towns and talk about issues against guns. I cannot talk about abortion. But the fact of the matter is, I think Planned Parenthood would tell you, when I was chair of Health Committee, they had hearings, not just one, but they were able to have more than one hearing. And they hugged me. I said, you're gonna lose the battle. And you never win this one. They said, well, this is as far as we have ever been. We've never had a second hearing or a third hearing. And I said, well, you have a chance now for people to understand. I will say to anyone, get involved, understand, keep up with it. You get my newsletters. And those newsletters tell you some information that you probably won't get anyplace else. Because everybody doesn't have Gone. And they don't have the Hannah report. My daughter's pointing to her watch. But I will say to you without question, keep up with it. You can always come to my house, sit beside wherever they have me. Sit beside me and I'll tell you everything that was going on. I think that one group came to my house, Noah. My dear friend from high school was there, Corvallis. And Corvallis said, Barbara, I didn't know they would bring everybody. I'm here in my living room, because that's where they wanted me at that time. And I said, where do you get all these people from? And they represented other groups, but I never told them to leave. It was Corvallis said, you need to let her go. She's tired. And I listened to all of it, took my little notes. My daughter laughs at me because I have these little books. And these little books look real crummy, but it goes back to the Governor Celeste, not Celeste, but to yes. And I write down everything by pen, pencil. I have 3 books. When I was in Judson, after I had the recovery of one, and I said, I think I have a surgery coming up. They said, how do you know? I said, I can tell there's something going on. I should not be looking pregnant. And my daughter, I said, I should not be looking pregnant. And the doctor came from Cleveland Clinic and said, yes, we're going to do this. But the thing that I do, I said, where do you live? Well, I live in Shaker. I live in Lakewood. I said, then your state rep is, your state senator is. Those places, I know because I know these people. And as my daughter is walking toward the microphone, I'm going to tone it down for her because she says I embarrass her, but that's too bad. After all these years, you got to be used to it. You got to be used to it. I thank you. What Charlie did.
Thank you, State Rep. Speaker Bowdish, our State Rep, our board, has always been with leadership. She's been at the right place at the right time. When she first went down,
Vern Wright.
As a result of the Celeste campaign,
Yeah.
we had some close friends. Judge Buchanan, Ms. Louise Buchanan, all worked with Vernon Sykes to get Celeste in government. It was the first meeting that the state had in Columbus with the Ohio Black Legislative Caucus. At that time, known as Bedford Veto. Barbara was the tie-breaking vote. We went over to the old Holiday Inn. Remember that state rep?
Yeah.
I said, now this is how it goes down in Columbus. This is how C.J. McLean taught me. And Vernon Wright. The deal. She went with Vernon. She had looked back since then. Thank you. Always remember the leadership. Thank you for the good leadership.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to make an announcement that as you all know, the governor, and if Representative Boyd wants to comment on the governor signing the budget, which included some really restrictive measures against women's health care, and in particular against, there are 3 amendments which are basically are very anti-abortion. So the ACLU filed suit against, on behalf of Preacher against Governor Kasich, and on the premise that it violates the state constitution, which there's a single subject rule, which the budget can only, I don't know exactly the technicalities, but they sued under the single subject rule in state court. So on Tuesday night at First Unitarian Church of Cleveland at 7 o'clock, we're going to have the 2 attorneys who filed suit along with Chrissy France from Preacher. So it should be a really interesting meeting because it's the only challenge against the governor. And just to add to what the representative said, you know, Governor Kasich got away with all that terrible restrictive measures in the budget by signing it at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night and doesn't say anything. There was no chance for, you know, for any legislative hearing or public outcry. In the past, when it had been brought up, and it more or less been shut down. So we did it this way, and so this is the first attempt at challenging it, and then we have to go on to keep reminding people of what the governor did. And, you know, that's really important, and going outside of Cleveland Heights, by the way, as Carol said.
Well, let me just say this, and this will be my last remark. Really. If you don't do it, if you don't work for it, you're going to get what you deserve. Now, that is something, what's wrong with you? I'm talking about my daughter who's hiding behind a young man. I'm going to talk to some people over the weekend or find out who's leaving town. Catch the ones who are most powerful, I know, in their office, and talk to them. Because it is only through them will I get a message in. Not the message, but a message in. You have to choose your partners. And I've lost one good one. But believe it or not, Speaker Davidson calls me. And I didn't know that 70-some-year-old, she may be close to 80. She is the second in charge of the National Republican Party. And I said, well, how do you stand it? And she said, well, and this little woman can walk you to death. Because, and don't say that how things can be. When I left my first term in 2000, after I got everything together for the judges and for the state reps, Taft, Governor Taft, hired me. And I still have the card. I said, Lord. And I had my ID. I looked in my purse, my ID was there. Because he said, do you know this issue of TANF? We don't. And I was coming home. I was packed all up to come home. And I couldn't do anything because he called me on the phone. He said, go over there and sign the papers. They're waiting for you. I never got home. because I knew the subject, I knew the issue. I was able to find some things out, and you'd be surprised what we have in this state. We have money for immigrants and money for refugees. And I mean money, millions. And it just sits over there. And I told one guy who's Republican, I said, why aren't you doing something with this money? He said, well, what are we gonna do with it? I said, you need to get these people here. And he looked at me, he said, I never knew anything about it. I said, I do, and I'm telling you now. I will tell all of you again. You can make some alliances, but don't give up your principles. Just stand, because I'm going to make a speech on the floor that is going to blow my dear colleagues out. And I'm going to talk to John Husted, and we're going to have a long conversation with him. Because of election day, my oldest brother could not vote for my daughter because he didn't have a passport. He didn't have a picture ID that was valid because I took away his, I told him, give up the car, you're too old, can't hear, so give him your car. He could not vote for his only niece. I called the State House to the election board down at the State House, and I said, this is wrong. I said, he served in Korea. I said, he was in France, and he was in Germany. You took him out of the classroom in Daytona Beach, Florida, where he was in school because he didn't change his address. And so you sent the MPs in there to take him out of class, and he went to Korea. I even have a picture of him in his army, and I got all his information because I'm his power of attorney. And they're gonna have to change that because he was born in 1932 in Florida. No, there is no record of his birth because they didn't give colored children any birth certificates. Now that's just a fact. And that's a shame because everybody didn't come over on the boat. And everybody didn't have a doctor. We had one, in Martin County, Florida, we had one doctor, John D. Parker, biggest drunk in the whole county. But he's gone on to glory. But he is not here to validate my brother being born. I was not born by Dr. Parker. My mother had a midwife. There was no colored ward in the hospital in Martin County, Florida, which is now one of the richest counties there is. But my brother was hurt that he could not vote for Janine. And some of us who are in this room can remember, if you go back long enough, you can go back when you could not get a ballot. You couldn't get. What is it called? Velox. You know, where you have I showed you that the gentleman gave me in Florida, where they had Colored Town. And this Colored Town had the name of every colored person in Stewart. And at 725 on Central Avenue was the name Ike Hamlin, my father. Next door, Miss Sowers. On the other side was Miss Julia Brown. And we could check, they knew everyone. And they did it, and it's a sad shame and disgrace, but it's good for Janine to know, because it is good for us all to remember there were times when we were colored. And all you have to do is to look on some of the documentaries. And I stood on the floor of the house, and I think I just thought I was killing John. You were there. And I said, you know I'm colored, don't you? And I won't say what my mother would have said, but you could hear a pea on cotton. And I told him, I said, I was one of those people who couldn't and would not be allowed to have a hamburger. We couldn't go to McDonald's. There was no McDonald's there at the time. We couldn't go to a restaurant because they wouldn't let you in, and if there wasn't a colored entrance, you couldn't get in there anyway. We traveled from Florida to Ohio, and now sometimes we forget because we have allowed ourselves to be pulled in, and we don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk about your grandmothers who understand because they were part of it. And I'm going to talk about it again and make Mr. Carney real nervous. Because he and my aide went to the bathroom, and McCartney told my aide, only Barbara Boyd would stand on the floor of the Ohio House and tell them that she was colored. It's on my birth certificate. And it's a terrible thing. But it was a time when we had to understand that we had no rights. We didn't even know when we had an election. So for those of you in this room who look at older people, think that they had to live through some things. Yes, Robert. What do you say? My husband says time's up.
Let's have a nice round of applause for Representative Barbara Boyd. Thank you so much. We've got some refreshments. We've got decaf